Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Front Porch Podcast, where we have intimate intergenerational conversations to connect, learn, and build from each other. I am Candace, your resident Gen Xer, and my lovely co-host is Mikkel, who is a millennial. And
The older millennial.
okay, that's right, older millennial. That's right, Mikkel's on the bubble. On this episode, we are headed to the front porch to talk about relationships and community and how we define these relationships and communities. So, Mikkel, who's joining us on the front porch today for this much needed conversation?
So on the front porch today is just a lot of lights, a lot of love, a lot of great essence. And we have Jamal, Ashani, and Keshav joining us on the front porch. Hey, y'all. Thank you for being on the porch with us.
Wow.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited. I wish I brought a couple to sit on the porch with.
So before we jump in, please tell us and tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what generation you're a part of. So let's start with Jamal.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be here. As the resident Gen Zer, I do feel like I'm being invited to sit at the adult table. So this is a little exciting. Yes. Hi, I'm Jamal. I am currently a second-year law student. I would describe myself as an optimistic realist. I try to be incredibly intentional in everything I do. And my motto usually is there's always a silver lining. So I feel like that sums me up a little bit.
Yes, honey. We're at the adult table with you.
Right.
Ashani.
Hi, I am Ishani, pronouns she, her, hers. As you can probably tell from the accent, I'm from London, UK. I'm currently living in Boston. I was a student here at Harvard University last year, and I'm working at university. And that's what brought me here. And what's kept me staying and growing here, I'd say, is this sense of community and wanting to continue learning. I'm an educator by practice, but a learner at heart. And I feel like this is the space for that, and I keep finding spaces where I'm always trying to learn. If I had a T-shirt that had my catchphrase on it, it would be I'm a tea drinker and overthinker. I think that describes a lot about me in so many ways. Yeah, I think that's it. If anyone wants those T-shirts, I may turn that into a brand because
Trademark that, yeah.
Right. And Ashani, you're a millennial, right?
I am a millennial, yeah.
I guess it's me next then. So my name is Keshav. My pronouns are he, him, his. And as you can also probably hear, I'm from the UK. I am part of the millennial generation, born in the 90s. And my passion in life is I wish we were taught more about ourselves and how to bring out our best selves, whatever that looks like, wherever we're from, whatever we're going through. And so what I do is I run two organizations. One is a social enterprise which works with young people from less advantaged communities and teaches them the core personal, social, and global topics that we're not taught in formal education. And secondly, I run a leadership development company that produces videos on YouTube and also runs workshops for businesses, organizations around inclusive leadership. So that's why I do what I do. And I'm really, really honored to be here, sitting on the front porch with you all, overthinking, drinking tea. And I'm looking for a rocking chair to relax on at the moment. So.
I love it. I love that. So we're going to start with something that we call rapid fire before we really dig into the conversation on defining relationships and community. So once you hear this rapid fire question, just answer with the first thing that comes to mind without taking a sip of your tea and overthinking about it. Okay. So, and Keshav, you'll be the first one to respond on the rapid fire. So the question is, what's the status of your current relationship with yourself?
Clear. and focused. How many? Can it just one word or one sentence? I can't remember.
Flow with it.
What most people don't know about me is I am working and doing all these amazing, cool things, but I'm also a part-time carer. My grandmother is currently in end-of-life care. In fact, just minutes before getting on this podcast, I was organizing all of her medication for the next 2 weeks. And it's a really difficult situation, as you can imagine, for the whole family, for her, for us, for me. And every time I talk about it, the natural reaction, very understanding, I really understand this, is, like, are you okay? Are you burnt out? Like, because we have so many assumptions about what it means to care for somebody in a scenario like that. But I keep saying, like, in my mind, I only have one clear thought, and it's just stand up and be counted. Like, all the things, all the development, all the stuff that I've done to work on myself right now, it's been activated even more. And the people that I love, the people that I care about, they are impacted by this. So for me, it's just this thing of, I got this, I'm here. Like, let me carry you, let me help you, let me support you, let's support each other. So yeah, for me, it's really, really clear, that relationship with myself, of that feeling and that drive, and that drive system is really engaged right now. So when I think of my relationship with myself, I know who I am, and I know my values, and I know why I want to be the person I want to be. And so it's like, let's do this, as well as all the other feelings that also come with a scenario like this.
Yes. Powerful. Yeah. You radiate clearness. It's in your energy, it's in your essence, it's in the glow of your skin. So yes. Good one, Ashani.
Jamal, I don't know if the audience knows why that was a good one for me yet. So to preface that, this is my fiance. That's why I did a good one.
Oh my gosh, yes. My first thought, the first word that came to my mind was soulmate. Like, I just really, I feel like like growing up, just like as a homosexual African American man, I feel like there were so many people telling me what my identity was supposed to be. There was no kind of representation of what my identity was on screen, and so I just pulled in from what I felt like were not very positive sources. And just at this point in life, I feel like I'm at the point where, one, I'm so grateful that I started being very intentional about my own development, my own growth, and what makes me happy, what's protecting your peace. You being assertive in about what is your peace and what makes you happy is not you being aggressive. And so just kind of reframing that mindset and just having a more intentional mindset about myself. Yeah, when I think of my relationship with myself, I think soulmate, because I'm constantly growing, but I am very grateful of where I am now. I like to express gratitude, as well as maintain aspirations about being better. So yeah, my soulmate, it's my best friend. I'm my own best friend.
I love it. I love it. So much delight on your face, so much delight in your spirit as you even share that. I love it. Ashani, what about you?
I feel right now my status is one of I'm learning and unlearning. I feel like in a real transition between like I feel like I'm at a particular point. I'm about to turn 30, and there's just like I feel like I'm transitioning to adulthood. Probably should have done that earlier, but I don't know if that ever happens. I don't think I've met an adult who says they feel like an adult. But there's definitely something that's like shifting. And like the last decade felt like a sprint. I was defining my career and like working, and Keshav and I run an organization together, and it was just like go, go, go and travel the world and make impact. And now this is that was my spring and my summer season, and now I'm in my fall where I'm like, okay, it's time to pause, it's time to slow down and like look at what I've done and who I am and what have I picked up? And like Jamal was saying, the messages that I've picked up, and is that really who I am? Do I still hold those beliefs, and things that served me before, do they still serve me now? And so it's really like a reflection fall season of, there is parts of me that I don't know and I want to explore and learn about who that is, but and also like unlearn as well. So very open and listening to what Ishani has to say. But sometimes it's hard to hear because there's a lot of noise. And so just trying to find quiet.
Yes. I'm getting receptivity from everything that you shared. It's position of being receptive. Yeah. What about you, Candace? What's the current status of your relationship with Candace?
Yeah. So it's I'm looking. I've been, as you all were talking and thinking, I was just kind of wanted to sit in the moment with you, and I was also thinking, man, what is the word that I want to use, or the phrase? But it's recognizing and finding almost like the value that I didn't know was there, or acknowledging it, and being okay with saying, I have value in so many different places. I'm a benefit even to myself, and just being okay with that, and not shying away from saying, no, there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to explore and learn and grow, but and there's value in all of that. So that's kind of the status with myself right now. I shared with someone just before we got on the podcast. They asked me to come and talk with a group of high school students on Saturday. And I said, some time ago, and I said, absolutely. But we were talking about what I was going to say to them. And I said, the one thing that I want them to know is that every opportunity is meant for them. Because I think sometimes we feel like, that opportunity is only for that person, those people. No, absolutely not. Every single opportunity that comes before you is for you. And so, but that came for me to be able to say that just comes with me just exploring and finding my own value, and knowing that opportunities are for me also.
Yes, that's beautiful. I'm a benefit to myself.
Yes.
That's powerful, honey.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Mikkel, tell us, what is the status?
My current
with yourself.
status with Mikkel is peaceful. I'm no longer warring with myself. No longer in an adversarial relationship with myself, from fear, from not believing in my treasure, from going into spaces and feeling like, okay, I can't show up as my full self. I got to observe. Is it safe here? And my therapist really broke that for me. And he was kind of like, get out of here with, is it safe? That safe business. Like, you're holding other people's expectations of you with greater importance than showing up as yourself. And that was like a form of people pleasing. I was like, I am not a people pleaser, sir. You don't even show up as your full self in spaces. So I'm at a place now of just enjoying myself, all the like little quirks about me. On days when I look in the mirror and I'm like, this natural hair isn't it, I say, yes, it is. Walk in it, be confident in it. You're more than your hair. You're more than your accessories. God has created you for a mighty purpose. So I'm no longer warring in here. I'm at peace in here. So that's my current status.
That's really powerful, that idea that you're warring with yourself. And almost, it makes me wonder how many people recognize that, right? That they are in war with themselves, or that there's a part of them that they haven't yet come to, I don't know, in agreement with. And they are absolutely warring within themselves. And then how does that manifest in the relationships and the interactions they have with other people even?
If I could just put this plug, if you're constantly in a state of frustration and blaming others, you are warring with yourself. You're warring with yourself. Yes. Well,
that was a lot. I had to take a pause there for a minute, Mikkel, like, okay. I'm gonna get this collection played out in a minute.
Yeah.
So we want to just get into the discussion. Thank you all for sharing all that. All that was all just powerful already. So, but we want to kind of get into a little bit more discussion about this whole idea of relationships. And we know that we define relationships differently. We think about them differently. We categorize relationships differently. We enter and exit relationships in different ways. And so I'm just wondering if you all can share a little bit about why you think relationships are consistently trending as a topic of debate or discussion. What is it about these ways in which we think about relationships, and why is it always trending? Jamal, how about you get us started?
Yeah, I really just think it's because relationships are so incredibly difficult to navigate. I don't think there are any perfect formulas to any kind of relationship. And because of so many of our relationships are cultivated, as we were saying, from ourself and that projection we're giving off into the world. I think that it's really difficult for everybody. I do think there are some like general approaches we can try to apply, being intentional, being honest, and things like that. But there's so much beneath that when it comes to you understanding yourself, who you are in this relationship, and then taking into account another person in that relationship, and then also taking into account the where this relationship is. Is this a romantic relationship? Is this a friendship? Is this family? Um, and so, yeah, I think that we keep sort of focusing on this topic because as we sort of get out of these sort of societal pressures and expectations we have of relationships and start to really navigate it on our own, we start to recognize that there's more that goes into it. So we're constantly learning. I think if we ever stop talking about relationships, we might be in trouble, because I don't think any relationship we're in is stagnant. And I think that your relationships are pretty vital to who you are as a person. So yeah, I think people are constantly trying to learn how to show up in relationships, how do they ask people to show up for them, and just what that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ashani, Keshav, what do you think there?
Yeah. I think I agreeing with everything Jamal is saying as well, and I think that just the essential nature of we are inherently social creatures, and so that just being such a core part of our being, and so we are not necessarily. I think like something that Kesha and I do through our workshops is like no one taught us how to communicate. No one like how do we do that? And suddenly we're just meant to figure that out by trial and error and learning and from other examples and like how much time will be intentionally spent in our youth, which we then carry forward thinking about how do I communicate? How do I show up? What does a relationship mean? But at the same time, I think like we were saying earlier, like how much have we focused on ourselves and poured into ourselves, and so when we haven't done that kind of inner work, it then spurs out and then manifests and we start projecting on others. So there's this constant interplay of like pouring into others but then pouring into ourselves, and that always that giving and taking that I think like Jamal was saying, it'll make it a never-ending conversation, an area of curiosity, and yes, I think it just is. It's like what life. I think this is the essence of life. Is like people, and at the same time, like I think is it Sartre who says that hell is other people, but at the same time, heaven is other people, and so navigate. They can be your biggest source of joy, but also the biggest source of pain as well. And living in that in between, and how we navigate that. So I think that's why it's just a never-ending conversation.
Yeah.
I have nothing further to add because I feel like what Jamal and Ishani have said has so aptly captured it. And, why are relationships such a hot topic? Because they're so close to us, but they're also, like we say, that we also feel at no point in history have we been more connected and had more means to communicate with her. Yet there is an increase in the number of people who feel isolated and alone. And there are so many people out there, and I've felt it myself, where you can be in a room full of people but you feel totally alone, and that's a tragedy, which I also don't believe is something new. I think it's a variation of the same things. And as you were speaking, Jamal, I was thinking about that whole thing of like, it's kind of crowded in a relationship, because there's my idea of who I think you are, and then my idea of who I think you should be, and then your idea of who you think I should be.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, if I'm warring with myself, there's these multiple parts: fear, anger, that whole Inside Out thing from the Pixar movie, that eating to decide, which version of you is showing up. And many of those things are unspoken, and those unspoken expectations breed resentment and frustration in relationships. And often we don't have that ability, compassion, patience to have those dialogues and honest conversations, because they're tough, right? And we can push people away inadvertently or consciously. And so it's tricky. But I also think, and then I was asking myself, does it have to be? Has it always, or did we learn it that way, or is it different? And I think often we, especially with social media and things, we think we know someone, but we really only see what they are able to, or what they choose to share in that edited version of ourselves. And I think that also adds a layer of complexity to it. So we're constantly changing. I was thinking of one of my favorite albums, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and in one of the in between interludes, she says, I'm just getting to know me. So, when you say, who are you? It's like, I don't know. I'm still getting to know who the real Lauryn Hill is. And I really relate to that, because I'm constantly being and becoming. So, it's so difficult. And one final thing that I just want to add is, we often hold on to an image or an idea of a person that we have that's taken from a very fixed moment in time. So let's say you're really assertive with me one day, and you speak in a slightly stern voice, and I take that as like, oh, Mikkel or Candice is always they're just really angry, and that I build my whole confirmation bias and perception around that. So that's why we're trying to figure it out, and we're talking about it, and so yeah. But relationships are also wonderful, and I despite all I've said, I love people, and I love being around people, with people, and all of that.
Yeah. Whew.
I love that. It reminds me of the term, I talk about it all the time, this whole idea of a coded narrative, and how we code all of these narratives about other people based on our own experiences and values and all those things. And then we expect them to operate in this coded narrative that we're projecting onto them that have absolutely nothing to do with them. Maybe it does, maybe there's some elements, but it really has more to do with us than it does them. And we don't then create the space for them to tell us and show up how they are, how they want to be. But we just say, nope, this is the narrative of you that makes me comfortable. So that's what I need you to do. And that's who I need you to be.
Yeah. And it makes me think, connected to what Keshav was saying, of all these things we collect along the way, our history of experiences with ourselves, with others. And when I think about just children and how they interact with one another, it's just like, hey, that's a cool toy. Can I play? You know what I mean? It's so free from the baggage and the weight, and it's so innocent. And it's, to me, a way I wish a lot of adults, we were able to connect without the stories, without the mask, and without the armor. And I think a lot of us are leaning into that. Even when I think about the status of our current relationships with ourselves, we're leaning into that. On that note, is there, when you look over your life, even from childhood, what was your first meaningful relationship? And how do you think that relationship has shaped your relational frame of reference?
I can start us off. Like the first one that came to mind was my relationship with my grandma, my maternal grandma. Because they, like, first it was my parents, but they feel like they're there, but the other person who comes in is my grandma, and we were extremely close. She was my best friend and is my guardian angel right now, for sure. And I do fundamentally believe that she's the one who connected me to Keshav, which is a whole different story. But I feel like that was the gift that she left me on this earth.
Oh
And
my
I was
gosh.
thinking,
Ooh, that caught me for a moment. Okay.
I really believe that. And I think one of the things that I think there's a relationship with grandparents is and can be, and I think why it's special is how much she showed the unconditional love by showing, by like giving me her time in abundance. Because, and I think it's the part of the, for so many reasons, she was retired when I was kind of got into an age when I remember things, and so like, and her joy came from, let me spend time with my grandchildren, and I'm going to sit and listen to all of their stories, and I'm going to sit and play games with them, and I'm so interested in every tiny bit of them, and I think that pressure of being the parent has been lifted, so it's just pure love and pure joy, and that, like I said, that abundance of time is something that has shaped to me what I think, the way I see like the best way you can give love or show you're present is, and I think it's so hard today, and it's something I really struggle with now, is like how to give as much time and totally undivided attention, like as if there is nothing more important for me than to see you right now. And I think that gave me such a sense of value, like I am valuable, I have interesting funny stories, and my dances are amazing, like, that sense of self-esteem of like, I'm really entertaining this woman, she loves when I do things, and I have something to offer. And like we were saying, like Candice, the gifts that you have, like she showed me from a young age that I have gifts. And so I think that's carried me through in the relationships. Like I always want to find the gifts in other people, and I try, and it's something I'm working on, I think, how to give that full abundance of my attention and time. And in this busy world, it's like, okay, I can meet you for an hour and then we've got to go, and then and like internally that doesn't fit right. And it's something I want to work on. And I think she really set the paradigm for me in that.
Wow, beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I guess I'll go. I think that what my mom comes to mind immediately when I think of meaningful relationship. My mom and my siblings. So I'm the middle child of five, and I was raised by a single mother. So I feel like they're obviously, she's working and she's dealing with five kids. And so there was not a lot of time given to each individual kid. And I also think as children, as hard as our parents try, whether they like to or not, some of the things we're going to internalize is going to be negative. And so I feel like just being the middle child, having siblings, there was always just discourse between me and my siblings. And then, with a single mom, not everybody gets to have a lot of attention. There's five of us. And so I felt like I ended up, I feel like, taking on the role of like helping my mom out. So I'd be helping with cleaning and cooking and things like that. And so I feel like I did grow up at a pretty young age. And I felt like a lot of my internalization was me internalizing emotions, because I was like, well, she doesn't really have time to, deal with me stressed about this or stressed about this. And so when I got older, I found that like a lot of times when I'm dealing in relationships, I'm like feeling a certain way, but not conveying that feeling to people at the risk of inconveniencing them or making them uncomfortable. I'd rather maintain the peace, is what I feel like I got a lot from growing up in my household. And so that's why I was kind of talking earlier about, maintaining your peace and recognizing the difference in being assertive versus being aggressive. And I had to like relearn how to do all of that because, I had this deep connection with my mom and I was the helper. And so I feel like I went into a lot of my relationships in young adulthood wanting to be the helper, and being the friend that was there for everybody, and not really needing people to be there for me, the therapist friend, that friend. So I think like learning to get out of that, learning to, also put my needs and interests out there, and not in the lens of, oh, I hope this doesn't make you uncomfortable, or I hope this isn't like weird for our relationship. It's just needs that are being expressed. And so I feel like that was a huge relational frame coming out of childhood that it took a long time for me to like navigate. And I'm still navigating it. There are some relationships I still feel like where I'm kind of like reluctant to say if I like I'm like uncomfortable with something or I disagree with something. And I'm like, well, why am I doing this? I'm like, I know this person will be okay with me being honest about, my opinions and feelings, but it's just me. I'm the one holding me back. And so it's still something I'm learning to work on, but it was really from that first relationship with my mom and my siblings.
Yeah.
I feel like so much of what you all have already shared just kind of ties this whole idea of, where you are with yourself, right? The status that you have and how you're maintaining that and how you're defining all of these relationships. And so I'm wondering then how that applies to being able to maintain healthy relationships, reciprocal relationships. And if the relationship that you have with yourself is broken, bruised, or battered, or if the relationship that you have with yourself is growing, changing, you know, I don't know, you're discovering some new things. Like how does that, like, what's that balance there? Like, how can you have, or can you have healthy relationships when you're also dealing with maybe parts of yourself where you're growing or exploring, or maybe it's a little, you have some tension there. With yourself or with the status of your relationship with yourself?
I will just briefly say that my immediate thought to that is I think you can, but I do not think that it will be durable. I don't think that you'll be able to maintain that relationship for a long time if your relationship with yourself is broken. Now that different people may think that you can, but I don't think that it will be healthy, reciprocal, or meaningful if your relationship with yourself is broken for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's coming to mind for me is the question of like, what is a broken relationship with oneself? And like you were saying, that distinction kind of said, I'm growing and I'm learning. And how do you know if it's like, okay, this is broken. This means like I need to, like, I agree, Jamal, like if it's like a broken relationship, that is like, no, I need to be in kind of in my isolation. I need to work on this. And how I'm just curious to know, like, what are the indicators to know if that's broken? Like, and if you've experienced that, we're like, hang on, I need to really sit back and just reassess versus like, I'm growing on this and working on this.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's, part of it is the repetitive things that might be happening in your life or with your relationships where you're like, why does this keep happening? Like over and over and over again. And you do that kind of introspective look. Is it me? Did I do something? And then, usually, well, no, it's them. No, it's never. No, it's not ever. No. Or it's, yeah, I need to stop and take a moment and I need to address some things so that so that I'm healed in a way, or I can find some healing. And then maybe I'll venture out. I'll find some space. I went through divorce recovery therapy, and which I needed to do. And there's always this whole, well, before you enter this next relationship after divorce, you need to give yourself a year or 2 years or whatever. So there's no time limit on that. I needed to go through a whole lot of divorce recovery therapy before I was ready to enter a new relationship and have a meaningful relationship with that person. So it was several years before I really was in a relationship. Dating, okay, yeah, okay, let me get out here and see what's out here. But in an actual relationship, it took a long time because there were parts of me that needed to heal. But I had to identify that. I had to be okay with identifying to say, nope, I'm not ready.
And so did you feel there was a moment where you're like, okay, I'm ready?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I look at the fruit a lot of times, right? Like you look at just the fruit in your own life. Like look at your relationships with the people that you work with. Look at the relationships you have in your family. Look at the relationships that you have just like in your social communities. If, like as Candace was saying, if there's a pattern of either tension, and tension comes with relationships. So there is no perfect relationship, right? It ebbs and flows through the whole range of emotions. But if there's a consistent pattern of like tension and frustration and having expectations of people that they don't know you have that expectation, so they never meet them, so you're always disappointed. To me, that is a good indicator that your relationship with yourself is very fragile. There's some level of self-acceptance, some level of self-respect that is waning and deficient. And you're going to see it in multiple relationships that you have. And I'm using that for my own life.
Yeah.
I think it, as Jamal said, your relationships won't be as durable or as meaningful. They're more than likely be surface and very fragile. First time something happens, that's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Keshav, what's top of mind for you? What do you?
I could really relate to what you said, Jamal. So I was smiling because I felt like you were describing me. And actually, Ishani knows this because she's the one who's helped me learn this. Is I only learned to have needs, or to not to have needs, to articulate them, and we have a constant, like, well, not so much now, but I for a long time really believed, and I that level of wanting to be a helper in relationships, I took to like a crazy next level. And a previous therapist of mine, we laugh about it now because I started off our therapy and I said, she asked me about my needs, and I was like, I don't have any needs. Like, I try and have as little needs as possible. And I was like really sold on that, and really like, yeah, that's just what I do. And I'm one of three brothers, so one of four boys. So I got three brothers. I'm also in the middle, so I could relate to a lot of what you were saying. And yeah, like that whole, you know, I there's so many times where Shani said to me, like, but I want to know you, like, I want to know, and I was so not used to even considering that or saying it out loud. And I was thinking about what you were all talking about in relation to an abusive relationship or a toxic relationship, because often it's not that we often have the same relationship or same variation of it again and again. And before I found my happily ever after, I went through that cycle, and it was only very, very later on that I'd healed from all those things, and I was in a happier place. But a friend of mine, we were talking, and she said, actually, all of what it's not just one toxic relationship you had. It sounds like they were all like that. They were all abusive, and they were all like, there was a pattern there. So I was just thinking about, like, often in our culture, we like to put a lot of pressure and focus on the individual. And I think sometimes I'm not sure what is, whether it's helpful or harmful, because there is a portion of personal responsibility we have to take, but also sometimes there are people out there who will take advantage of you, and who are conscious of what they're doing, and you are a target. And I really don't say this lightly. And I went to see like several different therapists, psychologists, because I didn't believe that it was true. I really believe that I'm making this up to make myself feel better. But now that I look back, I can see that, yes, I had some responsibility, but it wasn't really my fault in a way. And I simply say that in a compassionate sense, because saying that to someone who's a survivor of abuse, it's it's almost like, you know, that whole thing of like, you chose this, you attracted this, and it's like, I really didn't. I really tried to communicate well. I read all the books. I did all the personality tests. I went to therapy. I spoke calmly in an argument. I tried to really work on myself and all those things. I think that question around like, can you have healthy relationships if you don't have a good relationship with yourself? And I could relate to what you're saying, Candice, in the sense that there's really no timeline on these things, because I remember when Ishani and I first got together, there were people who loved me in my inner circle who really felt like, you're moving too quickly. And we joke that like, from the day we went from best friends to being together, we like, it was just like, it was no like, it was just, we just knew. And one of the things that because I knew my relationship myself, I knew like, yeah, this is it. Like, this is, I have to trust that. But it was so hard for me to trust that because of all these other messages of like, oh, you're supposed to wait, and you're not supposed, like, it has to be like, it's this much time, and blah, blah, blah. And actually the thing that just helped me was just to go like, yeah, but what do you think? What do you think? And that, but then I guess it comes back to what you were all saying about, you have to have that relationship with yourself. So yeah, those are just some of the things I was reflecting on as you were all speaking.
Yeah. Any thoughts or reactions to how Keshav kind of tied all the pieces together that he was hearing?
It's such a journey.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's such a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Even just to think about the messages that you internalize based upon the observations you have of other relationships or other people in relationships around you. Your relationships, you're the ones that you see kind of flourishing or happening around you as you grow up as a child with maybe your grandparents or your parents or your aunts and uncles, and all these different ways in which people are entering and exiting relationships, and just what you take away from that, and then how you use that information, or how you use what you've observed or what you assume is happening. And just how it kind of shapes the way in which you interact and how you see a relationship or define a relationship for yourself. It's all such a journey. And then when you finally get to the point where you say, I'm defining this for myself because I have to live in this relationship and be in this relationship without all of these other people, it's like a little light bulb goes off in your head, like, oh, I've been spending all of my time worrying about trying to fit into all these little boxes about how other people think I should be in a relationship. And then you're like, oh, that was just a bunch of wasted time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure, you learn from it and all. I mean, it's all learning, it's all a journey, but you do get to that point where you're like, this is my relationship. I got to figure this relationship out. Whatever y'all think about it it really doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really think you just need, there has to be some level of self-awareness. Like, you have to find that, be conscious, some level of self-awareness. And this is why I think therapy is so great, because no one's perfect.
Yep.
We're all biased, but to sit across from somebody and for them to walk you through that is so powerful and so beneficial. And that level of self-awareness is, it's not just going to magically come.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that having those relationships with therapists and things are just so powerful, because you're like, wait a minute, now that I'm thinking through this, and someone who's has nothing to do with my life experiences
Yep.
is telling me is walking me through this, it's like, wait a minute, now I'm understanding the patterns. I'm understanding what's internal, the external influences. And so I think that that's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Before I ask about how you all make meaningful deposits in your relationships, I'm struck by something Jamal said and something Keshav kind of pushed on or extended, this idea of communicating your needs, right? And there's multiple challenges with it, but I heard a challenge of one, even identifying what you need. Like, how do you even articulate to yourself, what is it that I need? And then how do you communicate that to others that you're in relationship with as to what you need? So what advice would you all give any listener that's like, I don't know how to communicate my needs. Or they say the assumption, well, what's the point of communicating my need? They're not going to meet it anyway. Right. So what's 2 steps, 1 step, a tip that you would give for one, identifying your needs and then communicating your needs?
I would say that because at first I was like, I don't know if I'm qualified to tell you because I'm trying to work on this. But what I find helpful is having scaffolding in place. So if I'm asking myself what my needs are, I follow the following formula. So maybe grab a pen and paper or something. But and I like to journal this is like, what I need from you is blank, and the way I would like that is blank, and this would help me in blank way. And I try and walk myself through that little bit of like a little bit of a script, because I sometimes, in the moment I forget or I get confused or whatever. So I just come back to this little sentence starter and I just ask like, okay, what I need from this person is this, and the reason I need it and what that looks like as well, because I really believe you get what you pitch for. And so if you're more specific about, okay, I need you to do the laundry and then I don't know, whatever the ask is, but just being specific, because we're not mind readers as well. And that's something that I try to go to. And in terms of a second part to that is just trying to find the highest common good that you share and trying to like appeal to that and get closer to that, because I think that also helps those conversations as to, people don't just buy what you say, it's how you say it and why you're saying it. So I think that's an important part is and the reason, this is important to me. But equally sometimes I'm like, but then maybe I'm over explaining it as well. So that's also like a thing, isn't it? And a quick thing I wanted to mention, it's on a tangent, but something that I'm really grateful for is growing up, I had a lot of intergenerational, interconnected relationships. So it wasn't just my family, it was my extended family. And that whole tribe and village, that really helped to give me access to some of the things that I didn't have as a child. So super tangent, but I just wanted to throw that in there as well about culture and how sometimes that's very normal in Indian culture. If you go to India, like your neighbor will just walk into at your house and like be like, oh, like I made you this, do you want some? And I enjoyed that while I was visiting a few years ago, that like there's less boundaries, but it's also the flip side is it's cool because we're not as like so separate as well. And I think it's nice to view these things from a different cultural lens.
Very
cool.
Yeah. I think it's just important to recognize that your needs are valid. Your needs are valid. You're not asking for too much. I think that a lot of times, how we were talking about earlier, how all these experiences are sort of informing our views. And so I think a lot of times people ask for their needs. People can usually recognize their needs, and then people ask for their needs. And oftentimes they're in relationships with people that can't provide them those needs. And so when that happens over and over, you get in this framework, like this mindset of, I just don't need to ask because this person isn't going to meet my needs. Well, this person just isn't the right person, for you in this relationship. So I think that recognizing, not everybody is going to meet your needs, but that doesn't mean that they become invalid, and that doesn't mean you should ever stop asking for them.
Great stuff.
Yeah, I love
Ashani, any tip or anything you would round out in terms of needs?
I think like I have no expert in this in any way, but something that like a self-created tool that Keshav and I use. Like at the beginning, he said he wasn't good at expressing his needs in that. I wouldn't say not good at, but like wasn't expressing his needs. That didn't come naturally. And I was like I said, I want to know them. And so I was like, I think the analogy that I use them is like, you put your needs on the table, I'll put my needs on the table, and then we can look at the table together, kind of objectively, as a collective view of like, these are all the needs on the table, and like, how are we going to navigate this? So like as a team, so it's not selfish for you to do that, because I will do the same. And as a team, we can look at these needs and like create a strategy together of what we're going to address. And there'll be times where like my need will prioritize as a result of that, or yours will be prioritized, but we're making those decisions with all the information. And that helps both of us, because we're making that decision together with the full information. If we don't give your information, it's gonna, like, I don't want that and you don't want that, so it doesn't lead us as a team together. So I think that was how when we did that was, and that's the phrase we still use, let's put it all on the table. And it's kind of, that makes it more objective, because we're going to look at that table rather than like a confrontation. This is my need, this is your need. How are they going to battle out? It's like, no, they're all now out, and we can play like a jigsaw piece and put it together in a way that works, and just reassess and come back to that jigsaw again and again. So that was a tool that, I don't know if it's a tool, but phrase that we use. Put it on the table.
Yeah. What I'm taking away from that, so helpful, is the point that Jamal just made. One, you and Keshav, there's a desire and a capacity to meet the need of the person that you're in relation with. And it does not have to be romantic. It could be platonic. It could be your work team, right? There's a desire and the capacity. You can put it on the table, but there may not be the desire and there may not be the capacity to meet that need. And then what is your next, response to remain in alignment with yourself and what you need? So good stuff. What meaningful deposits do you all make in your relationships, and what's been the return of that investment?
It's hard to answer because it's language that I don't think of it always as like my return on investment, and it's very financial language of like, I put in £10 and now where's my £11 or $11? And I think that's, relationships are a place you go to give, not necessarily to always get. And your needs are also important, but I think, and again, I caveat this because this is just it's works to an extent. But what deposits have I made in relationships? I know I'm making many, but I don't, maybe it's better if I did, but I don't sit and look for a count, because I've really been brought up to, and I really resonate with the value of trying to give selflessly without expectation. Or one of my favorite quotes or ideas is from the Bhagavad Gita, and it's just this idea that you should be engaged with your work or what you do, but also detached at the same time. And in Hindu philosophy, it's about, like, when you go to the temple, you offer a piece of fruit to God, and you like do your worship and everything. And it's trying to teach you this idea that do the work, but then also try to detach yourself from the outcome. And I think that's a really tricky thing to practice or to do, especially when, like I described, you're such a helper and overgiver, and you're not good at asking for your needs. But there's some, I think I feel like I've been making those big deposits, with my family, etc. But I also I choose. I think the difference is I'm not forced to do those things. I'm choosing to do those things. So it's meaningful to me as well, and I'm in that way I'm kind of getting something from it. I don't know if I've answered the question, but that's some of my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Other thoughts?
I really think that one of my deposits is just understanding and sort of acceptance. I had a friend tell me one time, he was like, you know, Jamal, the reason everybody's friends with you is you just accept people for like as they are. And I'm just like, well, what's my thought is I was like, what's the other option? You know, it's so easy for me to say, for me to come into a relationship and be like, well, I know why I do some of the things I do. Like I know my standpoint in society and how that's affected my life and you know how I handle people. I know nothing about your standpoint. You know, obviously, you know, you interact with people, and I'm like, we're not the most compatible friends, but like, who am I to try to change that? You know, and so I really think just like understanding and acceptance. Candace was talking earlier about how we sort of this coded narrative that we expect people to act in. And I think the moment you realize that everybody is not going to act the way you expect them to, life becomes a lot less stressful, you know? Um, and so I think that that's really important. And then the other one I want to say is honesty. I am very honest with my friends. And I expect them to be very honest with me. I think that's how, you know, can I be too blunt? Maybe. But that's why, you know, I'm not friends with everybody. But I think honesty is just so important because I think a lot of people get caught up in your friends needing to just like be on your side all the time. And I'm like, no, you can tell me you're not agreeing with this or we can disagree with this. I think that's how you build genuine relationships.
Yep.
And I think that's how you don't shy away from conflict. Conflict doesn't always have to be a bad thing. We're just having this disagreement. It's a new perspective. It's something I didn't think about and wouldn't have thought about had you not told me. So I really value putting honesty in my relationships and then getting that honesty back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on, Jamal, you are all in my notes, about conflict. Living between the space of conflict and compromise. I'm not even going to get on my soapbox with that because that's you have to live between that space. You know what's so funny
Have
about that
to.
question though, Mikhail, is that
Yeah.
I kind of I immediately went to well, I know all of the deposits that I made in the relationships that did not work. I can count
Mm,
those up.
Yeah.
I can put them in a bucket,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. You know
because
the
I
total.
know,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
know there was very little return on those investments. Like I
Yeah.
can count that.
mm,
But in my marriage, it's a lot of give and take, and I don't always see it because it's working, right?
Mhm.
Like whatever, the
yeah.
interactions, the relationships, how we are engaging and talking and communicating, like all of those things are working. But I can tell you exactly,
Mhm.
without a doubt, those
Mhm.
that didn't work. I'm counting it up. I can tell you, well, let me tell you this, I did this and this and this and this and
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and mm-mm,
Yeah.
and I don't see no fruits of my labor.
Yeah. Especially if you look at it from like a transactional standpoint
Yep.
Mhm,
or like an equity standpoint of points, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about just the meaningful deposits you've made in relationships and the return that you weren't even expecting of how it sharpened your
mm,
perspective
Yeah.
or how you saw your blind spot and you grew from it, or
Yep.
you realize that across any racial or ethnic differences there is humanity that we all experience. And the return on investment to me expands how you even see the world, how you see others, and how you see
mhm,
yourself, that
Yeah.
you never went into that relationship or you did it for that, but it's like, whoa, this was
Yeah.
the return on how it impacted me both for the good or the not so good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it.
mhm.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess I want to maybe switch gears just a little bit because I think we've been real serious, and so I wanted to ask a couple of things that are maybe a little lighter, just a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious, how social media plays a role in the way in which we develop these wonderful relationships, or if there are celebrity relationships or fictional relationships, relationships in Hollywood that reflect who we are or are influential in how we develop our relationships?
Hmm.
All right, I will start us off with some thoughts. I don't know. I think I was hesitant to add to this. It's almost cliche to say, like in this virtual world and connection and that. So I was just trying to think of something that sounded a bit more deep than that. But what I have said for several years now is like I wish I just didn't have a smartphone. Like I just get overwhelmed from unread messages and group chats, and like got to a point where I felt like it's an obligation to respond. It's an obligation to reply, and like
Mhm.
and like, oh, I have to go. I haven't replied, and then you forget, and then you feel really bad that you forgot, and like and I just like that cycle of that versus like I don't know. I keep saying I want to do this one day. I don't know if I will, but I was like, not have a smartphone. If you want to speak to me, you can call me, and we will speak on the phone. And just like because I feel like that's when I will connect. Otherwise, I'm having like this is kind of going off tangent, but I think it's related in the sense that it affects the relationship with myself as well, right? In that way. So I think it's both are so interconnected, and so recognizing that how they both interplay with each other, and so just the ability to like send a quick message in the middle of any kind of your train of thoughts are going in a process, and suddenly it pings, and then you're like this, and then I got to reply, and then there's a meme. I laughed because of the meme, and then like, oh, that person wants to know if I'm free on Friday, and then am I free? Let me other group because, and it's just like how. And anyone who probably knows me right now in the last few years knows that I'm not good at replying and getting to that, but it makes me feel like a really bad friend, like a lot. And I hold a lot of guilt around that because I want to show up for people, but I don't know how to when I'm constantly accessible. And I like currently live in another country, and I've lived in like 6 different places in the last 10 years. So I have lots of groups around, and because I would love to like have an intentional face to face or on the phone at least, and like a long 1 hour. And I may not speak to you 3 months later, but that was like strong and that was deep.
Yeah.
Maybe it then goes back to full circle with my grandma. Like it was the undivided attention, and that's what we have. So I think that for me is something that I'm struggling with. Like, how do you stay connected? And how that's affecting my relationship with myself, I think, as well. Because it feels like I'm not showing up for people because I'm not replying. But I know I feel like if we were together, if we're on the phone and we had that time, I would show up in such a better way. I know I could. So that's something that's coming to mind.
You know, as the resident Gen Zer, I'm gonna get on here and say I really don't think social media is all of that bad. Granted, obviously there are some, negative effects that we're aware of, but I think social media, we were talking about how you just sort of have this constant access to information, right? And so, not all the information is great, but some of it is. Some of it, there are so many people in our world who we were talking about earlier, how one, a lot of people don't grow up understanding what conflict resolution is. And you have these videos on, TikTok, Instagram. This is what conflict resolution looks like. Here's how you take, and there's so many examples of how to have positive relationships or people sharing their experiences with positive relationships. I think one of the biggest trends it has been the whole gentle parenting thing. That's something that like people are like but it's this huge video trend of showing how parents react to their children in like a stern but like positive way. And so I think that social media can obviously play some good roles and some bad roles in our relationship. I think it's important about your relationship with social media too, and what you're trying to get from there. I think it really does come from that. But this access, I thought it was so funny. I agree with the whole, I have friends from college, I have friends from high school, and here and here, and everybody wants to message and everybody wants to respond. I tell my friends, look, my phone stays on do not disturb from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. I'll get to the notification when I get to the notification. But if it's an emergency, to call me twice or press notify. But that's just because
there are rules to this. I love it.
There are rules to
there
this.
Are rules to this.
Yeah. I do not want to be bombarded and have that overwhelming. Like, I enjoy staying connected with people that I've been friends with for years, even if we talk on the phone once every 6 months, or I only see you in person every few months. I know that we still have that connection, and I don't want the constant messages to take away from that. So I try to filter when I'm ready to accept them and when I have that capacity.
Good boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you could maybe teach me a few things on how to use my phone effectively to not get overwhelmed. We could do a little seminar on that for us millennials.
I know you said, I'm thinking, do not disturb 24.
Yeah, I mean,
and then what do? You can do what with it? What do you tell these people? What? How do you do this? Where is my phone? I need a tutorial.
Yeah.
Right. What do you all love the most about the relationships and the community that you currently are in and have right now in this season of life?
I love that everyone's really taken their time to consider the question and sit with it.
I can jump in because it came pretty strong to me because he said at this moment. So I'm living in a place that 2 years ago I didn't know anyone here. Like it's only been a year and a half that I've lived here and feel like a very strong sense of community. And what I really appreciate about that is how this community is created out of nothing. So I think within and how everyone has just stepped up and recognized and I think to build such a strong community in such a quick time, to come in with that sense of trust and that openness, and I've got you, and we're all moving to a new place together. So we're going to come together and build that and support each other and be each other's family, be each other's support group, be each other's everything, because we're all in that boat together. And so I think I'm just appreciating that openness and that vulnerability that is required to get to that level, and that generosity to offer that support. Like I feel like I have so many people here that I can call in a second, and I'm very grateful for that openness and that inner humanity of we're all in this together, so let's be there for each other. And I just really appreciate that recognition.
Sounds like a collective.
Yeah, my first thought in thinking about the community and the relationships in my life right now, I just felt I thought nourishing. It's so nourishing. I think coming to Austin and coming to law school, I had a lot of misconceptions about law school. I think that, everybody tries to make it terrifying. And the coursework is exhausting. But, everyone tries to tell you the type of person that's going to be here. And I found that getting into the law school community was just so refreshing. Everyone is so intentional. I felt like I really got my first sense of being in a Black community being here. We have the Thurgood Marshall Legal Society for Black law students. And that was such a great experience for me. Just not feeling like I've really had that Black community connection growing up. And and then just like everyone else outside of that, all of the people, all of my classmates that I've gotten to know and become close friends with. I mean, these people are, we're going back once again to, you know, having to navigate my needs and express my needs. I feel like these people were like telling me what I needed. You know, they're like, we're going to bring you this. Like, we know you're stressed. And do you need a hug? Like, just, and I'm just like, people are just so intentional about caring for other people, recognizing we don't all have perfect days. Like, a few weeks ago, I wasn't feeling well. They were like, Jamal, go home. Like, I'll record the lecture for you. I'll send you my, and it's just like these people that genuinely, when you're around people that genuinely care about you, you find yourself just like pulling down these guards you didn't even know you had up. And so I really feel like being a part of this community has been nourishing, and it's helped me. You know, I was talking earlier how my relationship with myself is like my soulmate, and I'm like, these people are part of that reason. Like, I've been able to have a relationship with myself because I've had people pour into me when I'm also pouring into them, and I've really enjoyed the community I've established here.
So powerful.
Yeah.
I love that for you. Any other thoughts? So before we come into a close, I wouldn't want to close this topic without, I'm going to put you on the spot some, Ashani, without your story of disrupting norms as it relates to relationships. And you have a very beautiful story that I would love for you to share, how you agitated and disrupted the status quo, if you will, as it relates to a particular move in life.
Oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking about. Again, I wish it was
pink
nice
hair dyed. You dyed your hair pink.
Yeah, that was one of them. I wish it was like a nice subtle segue into into this, but which it was, but and the funny thing is, like, to me, it didn't feel like a big, and that's why I think I get a bit nervous to speak about it, because it doesn't feel like a big, you know, huge movement, like a huge brave thing that I did. To me, it felt very natural, and so it doesn't feel necessarily rebellious in that way. It was an act of love, and I think when that love in you is so strong, those social norms kind of just fall apart, and love is love is love, and I think that's exactly what that is. And so there was a social norm that in a heterosexual relationship, the man would propose to the woman, and I proposed to my partner, to Keshav here, and that just I mean, to me, it wasn't even a question. Like, this was the most incredible human and gift I've ever could have even imagined, and I don't think it even occurred to me. And I think I don't even know where the idea came from, that I wanted to propose. And I think it's just an appreciation of how I was raised, that like to defy those gender norms, and those don't restrict that. And in fact, I wanted to express, like, I want to marry this man, and I want to ask him, and only, I think, after the fact, after like some responses from people being like, oh, that's brave. And I think, yeah, it's brave to express love in a way, but it also just felt so natural. And I think, yeah, I'm just struggling with the words, because it just felt right. And I think that came to a point we said right at the beginning of like that inner knowing and what feels right to you. And when you know that's so strong, it doesn't matter what people around you are saying. And we both had a chance to propose to each other. That's what I remember very early on. I think we saw it somewhere, Keshav. We saw, I think, maybe a video or something. And this is to social media. So Jamal, you're absolutely right. There's so much goodness that comes from that too. Or something like that. And Keshav was like, "Oh, that's so cool that like the woman proposed in that." And that was like another, like, one of the 1,000 ticks. Like, this is my guy. Like, a guy who is like, that's cool, rather than. And I've had some responses about in other ways around, some like anti-feminist responses to that, and he's like, that's so cool. And I was like, yeah, you're definitely my guy. Like he's like, yeah. And so I kind of tricked him for until I got a chance to propose into saying that I wasn't going to do that. And I was like, make it so. And so when I did, I think it was a surprise in a beautiful way. And I think what I've loved is he has been so proud to tell everyone that again. So I think that's also an assessment of like, it is not a threat to my sense of masculinity in any way. Like he's so proud that, yeah, my to-be wife, he loves it. And that's another, I don't know if that's hard for you in any way, Keshav, but like the fact that he's like so proud of that as well. And then he had a chance to propose to me a year later. And so we both got our moments. So when I proposed, like I got a watch in a box, and I got down on one knee and I opened it up and I did the thing. And it was wonderful. So yeah.
That's such a beautiful story.
I know that. I'm like, that is just, I love that. I love it.
Breaking those norms. I love it, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like I have like the biggest smile. I mean, you know, it's the biggest smile on my face because that is such a beautiful story. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, maybe all be moved by love so radically that we anchor in who we are and give that love to everyone connected to us and everyone connected to them and our relationships and our communities and every space that we enter. Any closing thoughts before y'all share how people can follow you, connect with you?
Just on, I just on what Ishani was saying. I just want to echo that like it is radical to the world, but for us it was just really normal and natural. And I think that's a really wonderful, beautiful thing that you can create these spaces with your partner, your friends, family, even just, you know, the bus driver, like where that you set your own norm and it doesn't have to be defined by this structure or system. So I'm honored. I'm far from like, it doesn't affect me in my masculinity. It's just like, I'm really proud. I'm like, I want to tell as many people as possible because they need to know like it's so wonderful. Like it's not even, I hate that it's like a thing that we have to, that it's radical. Like I wish it was just, oh yeah, people do that, you know? So yeah, just shout out to the love of my life and my best friend for such a wonderful question that I got to say yes to.
Oh,
I love it. That's so sweet.
I'll save the proposal story for another time because that was a good one.
I wasn't going to close it without bringing it up. I was going to see if it was going to come up and we were going to share.
I don't know if we have time, so I was like, I don't want to, you know, I tell long stories. Like I said, storytelling, I love that. I take long stories. So there's a long version of that. So I don't want to take up any more time with it.
Oh,
no, thank you for sharing. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Jamal, how can people follow you or get in contact with you and connect with you?
Yeah, so best way to get in contact, to follow me on my Instagram, it is going to be my first name, Jamal _Kings, KINGS. I have an open account, so go in, feel free to message. I would love to continue this conversation in, you know, any way or other conversations. Like I said, I love dialogue, so let's keep talking.
I love it. Keshav, what about you? How do people connect? Or
I love hearing from people, and if you listen to this far, I would love to hear what your experience was as well. Thank you so much for your time. You can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/KeshavBX, KESHAVBX. And then it's the same handle on any platform. So I'm sure if you type my name in, you'll find me. And I genuinely, like I say, would love to hear from you. So thank you so much.
Shani?
Let's say I wish I had a YouTube, and kind of use social media less. So I'm gonna go with my LinkedIn, which I don't really use it in any professional way. That it is the thing that's easily out there and accessible. So that's my name, Ishani, Ishani, and my last name is Parekh, Parekh. You do not have to send me any deep career questions on there to connect around what is your or anything like that. It's probably just the most accessible way to message me, and I would genuinely love an authentic conversation. And yeah, to hear your feedback. And again, yeah, if you got this far with listening to us, I really appreciate that. And appreciate all of you for the wisdom that you shared, the presence that you shared. It felt like my grandma's presence in that sense of abundance and openness and love. So thank you all for this time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, you better close the show, Ashani. We could just close on.
I know, right?
Close on that. Thank you so much for listening to the Front Porch Podcast, and we'll see you on the front porch soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.